Yeah. So today we have Vaishnavi with us. She's the CEO and CMO of Confluence Media, and she's working in marketing and brand growth because see that's very important for the crust. That's very important for the core of marketing. So she has expertise on it. She also shares a personal insights on business branding and contents on LinkedIn. So over to you, Vaishnavi.
Hi, thank you so much. The intro was very nice. Excited to do this.
Yeah, and one most important, I used to see a status. She's a little bit deep spiritual person. That's very important in our life because,
Yes.
yeah, am I right?
Yeah, that's so cute. I love how you
Yeah,
pick up
even
little
I'm a
things.
spiritual person. That's why I can relate to it.
I feel you.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the best thing, that's the best thing we can do it because that's help us to
Helps
stay
you
away
stay
from,
grounded.
yeah, help us to stay away from
Correct.
mean,
Negativity.
toxic people and all. So
I
over to you,
swear.
Vaishnavi, now.
Yeah, so hi guys, I'm Vaishnavi. I create content on LinkedIn. Been doing this since 2.5 years now. Grew from 0 to 57K. Worked on two ventures from scratch, and currently I'm working with my co-founder at Confluence. So we are into influencer marketing, personal branding, and brand strategy. It's going great. Sometimes it's exhausting being a founder, but it's fun. I'm enjoying the process. So mostly I post about marketing, business, and behind the scenes on LinkedIn.
So, podcast. I've been hearing your podcast. So there was that you were the English honor student. You
Yes.
so what was your journey before and after when you jumped onto LinkedIn and what pushed you towards creating online and all?
Okay, so actually, LinkedIn wasn't planned at all. I was an English honors student, and after graduating, I couldn't make it in the placements because I come from a distance learning background, which traditionally meant that my options were very limited, and I was skimming through what would make me happy if I pursued it for a full time option. So I think apart from documentation and apart from content writing, marketing stood out a lot. So I started out by interning at 2 3 firms. I helped them with growth and brand strategy and campaigns and things like that. So that's when I figured out that marketing was my forte. It made me happy, and I learned a lot initially. I also used to write blogs for my friends' website. So this was when I was in my first year of college. So because of all these experiences, I had some exposure, and LinkedIn happened out of the blue, honestly. So I think it was in 2023 ending probably. That LinkedIn was booming. So even the term personal branding was a little alien, but people were posting a lot on LinkedIn. So before this, I used to write on Quora. This was, in the pandemic era. So it went well. I wrote a little on Medium and Quora, and I figured out that I could yap on LinkedIn as well. So I started very randomly with, like without having a niche, and then slowly made my way through it, learned, unlearned a lot of things, and yep, since then it's been a great ride.
So basically, so you were telling that you used to figure out how to do those works which makes you happy because you told us
Yeah,
it was not that thing. So whatever
correct.
happened. So basically, so you did a deep analysis of your work which make you happy. So there would be many listener who would be listening to this podcast. So how should we do the deep analysis of those things which can make us happy? See, career is not
Right,
only about money. It's also that you need to have a good mental health and you need to be happy.
correct.
So,
Right. So yeah, please go on.
how the people should do a deep analysis that they can make them happy?
Okay, first thing, what I tell a lot of people is focus on your strengths and weaknesses. So once, you know, so have like a SWOT analysis. So once you do that, you'll get a reality check that, these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses. Second, figure out what you love doing. Now, in the world, you have many monetizable skills. For example, if you're a public speaker, then probably just start deep diving into the occupations that are available in that list, right? So, one, you can either become a coach for MNCs. Two, you can become a public speaker. Three, you can launch a course. So, you'll have a lot of different options. Third is to see where are the target audience. For example, see, obviously, you live in a world where everyone is very hyper competitive. So, you cannot just make a mark if you stick to the offline version of things. So it's very important for you also to have a digital presence. For example, just going with public speaking and marketing. If you're interested in that field, Instagram is a great option. So you'll find a lot of gigs there. LinkedIn is a great place to make your presence and sort of uh, speak about your journey. So figure out what platform your target audience are the most active on. And four, start building on your portfolio. Have sample works, take up beta clients, start working for them. And once they start trusting in you, then increase your client rate. And five, just put yourself out there. Just put yourself out on the internet. And just talk to a lot of people in your niche. That'll help.
Because see, networking helps, and
Correct.
people is gonna definitely help you. You need to do the networking is matters a lot.
You need to just ask the right people.
Yeah, yeah. And we need to experience it, then only it's gonna happen.
Correct.
And follow up matters a lot, no?
Definitely. So, I have to see if you're reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, which is way easier because Instagram, usually people with a lot of high follower rate, they usually have a tendency to ignore your DMs.
Hmm.
So on LinkedIn, what you can do is you can actually, even when you connect with them, you can send them a personalized note
Hmm.
saying, "Hey, I'm from this niche. I love what you do. Would love to, catch up for a virtual coffee, or I have a few doubts. Can I shoot?" And at least if you send it to 10 people, there'll be two people who'll accept. Forget about
Yeah.
the 8 people, but just keep sending it to people until you get a yes. And then make sure you engage with the content. You need to make that personal rapport as well. No? You just cannot slide into their DM. So even that's
Hmm.
important. And then just study the profile, make a list of the questions that you have, tell them that these are the doubts you have, and then network with them. So like in outreaching we use a set of scripts. So I think even in network you can have set of scripts like, okay, this is the greeting, this is the icebreaker, this is the follow-up, and that matters a lot. So people feel like following up is embarrassing, but you actually should do it because a lot of people might be busy and they'll miss out on your DM. So only if you follow up, they'll know that okay, it's on priority and that they need to respond to you. So there's nothing shameless in following up. Just put yourself out there.
Yes, yes. So basically, your early post got single like. What's your motto that
Yeah.
going up? That was yes, I need to do it anyhow.
So when I started writing on LinkedIn, I think I had about 20 failed posts. So consecutively, 20 of my posts, they ended up getting anywhere between 5 to 10 likes. I remember I would send my mom, I would send my dad, I would be like, up like kar do. I'll get that push. But there was this random humorous post that I did. It was a take on all the scams on LinkedIn that people were doing. And it just blew up. Like it got like 250 likes. And that was my 21st post. So I think that gave me the dopamine to chase a different kind of a version of myself, and I just started creating content. I'll be very honest. It is a rigorous process because in the starting you do get caught up in vanity metrics and you sort of get into the comparison loop, which is a little vicious. You can't help it. It's toxic because the nature of the industry is as such, right? As content creators, we live by numbers. But I think the real ROI is to be seen by the right people. So I think for me, it started making a difference when I started putting myself out there. Like it, after some days, it didn't bother to me if I got less likes or more likes, but people would reach out to me on DM saying, like, hey, I read your post. It made a difference. My post made your day. Like, this was relatable. So, that difference that I felt that I'm making to the community, like, even if 3, 4 people read and they relate, I'm happy. Because I'm like, okay, I put myself out here and there are people who relate to me. Second, I feel like it also helped me network with a lot of great people. Like, people in my post, they reached out to me. So, I got my clients, I got great friends. So I think reaching out to people matters, and we need to understand that content creation is a very monotonous but yet rewarding journey. So you need to keep showing up. Algorithm is not in your hands, but what is in your hands is how you keep showing up irrespective of what happens.
Did you learn any courses related to it? Basically free courses or paid courses or any YouTube video or any books?
So when I started out on LinkedIn, like in the earlier days, I had no clue. I mostly learned by observing and just talking to people. Like you said, right? Networking helps a lot.
Hmm.
So I think initially after like a month or two, I also worked at a personal branding agency.
Hmm.
So they used to work with great clients. So I learned a lot through my first job. So I was there for like a good number of days and I picked up a lot of things. I would face clients, I would strategize for them, I would write for them.
Hmm.
Uh, so Along the journey, I refer to a lot of materials. I did a lot of courses, but yeah, I didn't do it in the starting. Eventually, as a part of the journey, I studied a lot of people's profiles and did a few courses and spoke to people. And yeah,
So did you basically, there would be people who would be want to learn LinkedIn, so they should follow you especially.
that's sweet.
And what courses they should do, free courses or paid courses? Because I think so, I don't know her name, Lara Costa is the best thing because she's uploading a video related to content,
Yeah,
related to, sorry, on YouTube. I think so that's a little bit of technique she's giving us. So yeah.
correct. Yeah, so I would say honestly, you get everything on YouTube these days. So get started with YouTube. See, on LinkedIn, you can actually follow 3, 4 people, like you said, right? Lara Acosta, there's Sam Swinsbury, there's Unnati Baga, there's Vedika Bhaiya, there's Alex Hormozy, there's Jasmine Aliak. So you have these people who make great content. So
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
say follow them because LinkedIn has profiles, their profiles are public. And even if you scroll their page for 5 minutes, you'll understand what kind of content works and what
Hmm.
picks up. So you just need to observe and pick up what works, and then you can obviously double it if you want to
Yeah,
A/B test on your profile. See, coming to courses, like I said, right, I was there at my first job and I was working at an agency, so they had their in-house materials that I referred to,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
yeah, I think even Lara Costa has some great videos. Like personally, I've not attended any of her courses, but just make sure you talk to the right people and
Yeah,
get
yeah.
reviews. Yeah,
So yeah, basically there was one person who was saying that if you need to become a great LinkedIn writer or a copywriter, you need to basically read copywriting content from a famous people, because you will get some idea and write one content on a daily basis, small or short, long, anything matters.
correct. You just need to write. Even if you don't publish on LinkedIn, it's okay. Just keep writing.
So how did you do it? Basically, that matters a lot because you told me that
Correct.
21st I'm really sorry, 20 content got
Yes,
viral.
yes.
So, so what make
20
you,
posts got flopped before the first one became viral. Yeah.
yeah, so what worked for you? Basically, you wrote consistency, there was consistency into it, or what worked?
So one was definitely understanding how the platform works, right? So every platform has a specific nature and it has a different kind of audience it caters to. So I think understanding the operational aspects of a platform are very important. Like LinkedIn is great for B2B, Instagram is great for B2C or D2C, and Twitter has its own advantages. So first thing is to give yourself a window when you're starting out, which obviously I didn't because I randomly started.
Hmm.
Algorithm is unpredictable. I got to know that at a later stage.
Hmm.
So personally, in my case, I think, yeah, like you said, consistency. Second, I picked up the structure. So there's a set structure in every platform that we follow, right? Like LinkedIn, you need to have a good hook, you need to have a good context, you need to have a rehook for support, you need to have like dissections or bullet points so that it's easy, like a listicle. You need to have some frameworks that you apply, like maybe like problem action solution framework, the PS one, or like the listicle framework, or you have different frameworks for different things.
Hmm.
So uh, I would say I observed a lot of content. Like I had 10 people that I followed.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would see their posts every day and I would sort of iterate and I would practice writing in my tone. So I would like replicate their content in my style.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't post every day, but I would make sure that I got better at it
Hmm.
by refining. So I also tried posting a lot of different niches. Like I used to write about life, about business, and about growth. And yeah, so case studies are doing great. Personal stories work well on LinkedIn. Even humorous posts, they're doing great these days. So it's just by understanding how the platform works, by consistency, by talking to people, by adapting and changing
Okay, okay.
according to the algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah, but some people say that Jasmine, I don't know, Jasmine Alice, he said that you need to do a comment. Comment also helps a lot. But there's some people who say that comment, they don't love doing comments and all.
Yeah. See, initially, if you're starting out and if you're someone who also wants to network and form genuine relationships with people apart from just maybe, helping your content get the right traction, I think networking is great. See, when you comment on people's posts, it has to be meaningful, right? It has to be authentic. It can't just be a random ChatGPT comment. So let's just say in my case, because I come from a marketing background, if there's a marketing leader with whom I want to network, so obviously I cannot slide into his DM. So I'll read his post and then I'll express my perspective or I'll tell what I loved about his post. So comments are a great way to establish the unseen rapport with the person you admire. So, for example, there can be a person in your niche that you want to talk to, there can be a marketing leader you want to approach, or there can be someone with whom you want to do an icebreaker. So, even a lot of times it so happens that, let's just say, if I have a list of prospects, right, that I want to reach out to and pitch to, so I don't directly start by pitching. So, I engage on their posts, and then because it puts me in a spot, like they know that you exist. So you have to comment, but I think you have to comment on the right people's posts. It'll depend on your goals. So, who are your target audience? With whom do you want to make meaningful relationships? And why would you want to bond with them? So, analyze all this and then. So, before you post, I think 15 minutes is ideal. You can comment in, I think, 5 posts. And after posting, you can engage for 15 minutes because that timing is peak and it'll also help you get reach. Because, of course, if you're commenting on people's posts, even they'll see your posts, they'll also share their feedback. So that's also great for getting traction plus forming meaningful relationships.
Basically, we talked about the current content pattern, hooks, bullet points, and all. So there is a posting time also.
Correct.
You are an expert in LinkedIn. So does a posting time matters or
A
not?
lot. A lot.
Uh,
Yeah, so it matters a lot. And also, I feel like you'll hear a lot of gurus and you'll hear a lot of people preach about LinkedIn timings. But honestly, there is no one set LinkedIn time that works for all, right? It is something that has to be tried and tested on your own. So, see, suppose, for example, I have my best friend. So, he's into finance. He writes about finance and investing and all of that. So, he has a different time because he knows his target audience is active in that segment. So because I write for freelancers and marketing people and brand strategists and all of these people, I know that there's a chunk of the day where these people are the most active. So you need to know who are your target audience. You need to know when they're the most active, and that is when you need to post. So, but ideally, if I had to shortlist the 3 best slots, I would say 9:30 to 11:30 is great.
hmm.
12:30 also worked for me in a lot of cases, and 4:30 to 6:30 is also ideal.
Okay, so Vaishnavi, yeah, so I wanted to say that okay, so there's a lot of business person who just write the content on their own. Okay, but there are some people who don't have a budget to hire those people because
Correct, correct.
many people comes to LinkedIn for just for promoting their YouTube video algorithm, or they have a blog. Basically they write blogs and all. So what happened that LinkedIn have a certain rule that you cannot upload your your YouTube URL on the post. You need to comment, basically comment on it. So
Correct, correct.
people couldn't comment if they scheduled the post at specific timing. So they couldn't comment or paste their URL, and they're very busy on it. So what they do, they just write. They have the content ready for them, but they post it. Sometimes they post on 5 p.m. Sometimes they post on 7 p.m. So what is your take
Correct.
on that?
See, I mean, having different timings is okay. If you're A/B testing, it's fine because it'll help you understand if, like obviously by the engagement interaction, you know if it's reaching your audience and if the right people are commenting on it. Plus, you'll also know what time works best for you. But having different timings is not the best. You can have one set timing. You can take 3 weeks where you A/B test. So let's just say one week I do 9:30, next week I do 4:30 in the evening, then next week I do 6:30 in the evening.
Mhm.
So you can take 3 parts of the day, like morning, afternoon, and evening. You can take 3 timings, and then you can A/B test. But yeah, you need to have one timing that works for you, or at the max two.
Those
A lot.
strategy matters because
Yes, yes. Because even when you put out different types of content pieces, right? So for me, personal stories work the most out of all the content pieces I put. So for a different type of person, it could look like a different content piece getting the traction for them. So even for you to understand what kind of content piece gets you the right traction and reach, you need to A/B test with even the content types.
So having a corporate experience in Growth Square, I think so that is managed by Vedika and Unity
Yes, yes.
and HCL. So what basically it helped? So you were taking that, telling me that I was working in a corporate. So how it bloomed you? How it basically changed your personality when you are writing a content or by yourself? So you can just mention that how it changed your experience in writing
Hmm.
the content and how it changed you as a personally, not as a content, but you can just
As a
say,
person.
yeah.
Okay. So when I was in HCL, I was into the programming sector, pretty different from marketing, like poles apart from what I do now. But I think being in HCL gave me a different kind of an independence. Like we would have meetings with stakeholders, we would have projects where, maybe I would brush up the concepts and I would present. So it helped me improve my communication skills. It helped me put myself forward. So I got out of my comfort zone and I used to code. I can't believe what I used to code. So that was crazy. It was a very different skill altogether. Growth Square, I think it'll always be something that stands out in my journey because that's where I actually started getting belief in my skills. So like, we would have client calls and I would strategize, post for them, I would come up with topics. Uh, so we would A/B test with content pieces. We would brainstorm a lot. We would help them with visual directions, and so they have a pretty good clientele, right? Like, let's just say you're just starting out and you get to speak to a founder who's doing like millions of dollars in sales. So obviously, you'll have imposter syndrome. You'll feel very insecure. But I think Growth Square really helped me overcome all of that, and it gave me a sense of autonomy that I still use it to this date. Like if I'm able to manage clients on my own, I think the major reason is because of the exposure that I got there.
Okay, so as you told that basically, can you just say, so what is the basically? I don't want to just you to reveal the organization A/B testing, but you can as a just give the example of A/B testing and the brainstorm because
Okay.
that matters a lot.
Sure. So I'll tell you how the industry does it in a generic sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you get to work on a client's profile, right? When I say A/B testing, you need to figure out what kind of content works, and this will also depend on the industry that the person is there in. So, for example, if this person is in a lifestyle industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where maybe he or she's running a beauty brand, they'll have a lot of teenagers and women as their primary target audience. So for them, I think what would do the best would be their personal stories with aspects of entrepreneurship. So that'll be a mix of tofu and mofu if you look at it from a marketing lens. So every founder lens has a separate framework. If you talk about personal branding, like they have these three funnel stages where we dissect their wins, their personal stories, their growth stories. We put a lot of industry posts, case studies, and testimonial dissections and all of that. But when you sort of like juggle around and you test for different pieces like personal stories, growth stories, motivational posts, and the most vulnerable posts, industry related posts, or you repurpose some informative article or some very like a very informative video, you'll know what works for them. So that is A/B testing with different types of content based on the funnel and based on their audience. B, timings. Timings vary a lot. So even if the person comes up to you and he's like, I have an ideal timing, it might not always be the best case scenario. So you need to take 2, 3 timings and then post consistently. And then I think after 2, 3 weeks, you'll understand what time is working for the profile.
Yeah. So basically, you mentioned tofu and mofu. So
Hmm.
when you say tofu is top of the funnel, what is that tofu?
Yeah. Yeah, so tofu is the one that gets you the major chunk of the followers and all of that. So tofu is the key to building your brand's awareness, like even as a person. So tofu will mean a lot of different things. Like you write about your life, you write about your personal stories, your growth, and all of your life, just you yourself putting it out there. So anything vulnerable and relatable that you feel like it will trigger an emotional chord in the other person and create a difference, that's tofu.
And Mofu?
So MOFU is middle of the funnel. So it establishes you as the leader of the space that you're in. So, you'll find authority building posts. So let's just say, in my case, if I had to take an example, if I say I closed X clients in 1 year. So how did I do that? I'll break down. That's MOFU. Second, what approaches did I use to, convert this client? That's second one. Third, if I look at a personal branding piece and if I give my take on it, then that's a MOFU. So
Okay.
anything and everything that helps you establish authority in the space is MOFU.
Okay, so storytelling matters a lot of in content writing. Whenever it comes to LinkedIn, uh, YouTube, on major social media platform, or whenever you're pitching or to the sailors and all. So basically, how to use that storytelling frame? Just speak in a short note that matters.
Sure. See, you do have a lot of frameworks for storytelling, but I think the key to it is just being very authentic. Just be very authentic. And see, on LinkedIn, if we talk about the storytelling framework,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll just dissect a post, right? So your hook is something that will come before the see more option. So that's like a mini trailer to your post. So make sure it either has stats, it's very intriguing, it has a curiosity inducing element, or it's something very gripping to the other person. So let's just say if I was writing about a loss that I had in my agency. So I would say, I burned down X lakhs even without knowing. So it'll trigger the other person and be like, oh my God, how did she burn so much money? And then I'll set the context. This was not because of a failure, it was because of a lesson. So I'll give like a context to it. And then I'll start narrating. So X days ago, I occurred with an incident where, maybe I signed a contract with the client, but and we invested in certain tools, but they didn't show up, and that's why our business got in losses. And I list down my learnings. So I think just giving takeaways or your personalized opinion really sets the post apart. So after giving like a hook, rehook, and some certain context, I'll jump into the takeaways and what I would like to convey with the post. So I'll give my experience. The key is to just be very vulnerable, be very authentic. It's okay, no one is judging you. Just put yourself out there. So it'd be like, I didn't know, I admit, but here's everything that it taught me. So it's not like you're making it preachy, but you're just making it valuable to the other person so that they don't repeat the same mistake or that they know what to expect in case of such a situation occurs. Either because they look up to you or because they find you relatable. So takeaways slash pointers really help. Next is to have a good conclusion. Just summarize the whole thing in 2 3 lines. And the last one is a CTA. It's a call to action, right? So it can either be a question or it can be a line so that people network with you, uh, or it can be a suggestion that you want from them. So have a very nice CTA so that it actually triggers people. They comment, they tell you how the post is, they read it till the end and all of that. Keep your post within 250 words, max 300 words. And make sure you format it between every 2 3 sentences. Give a lot of white spaces for readability and don't clutter your post. Yeah.
Basically, a lot of corporate journey you have had. Now it was that you open your startup agency.
Yeah.
So what was the you have a lot of failures, client dealings and all.
Correct.
So tell the story of your startup means because
Okay.
storytelling captures our
Oh,
audience.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Hmm.
So I think around 6 months ago, last year in August, I would say, not August, I think probably June. So I started working with two of my co-founders. I was simultaneously working on two agencies. So one was a personal branding agency, one was a marketing agency. It was for influencer marketing where we would connect brands to creators. So everything was going great. But I had certain commitments that I had to make for myself, because of which I had to step down as the co-founder in both of the agencies. But I worked with these people for a bunch of months and it was great. So we built the businesses from scratch, we reached out to clients, we got work, and it was the first time I was facing the entrepreneurship life. It was very uncertain, but I got used to it. And So I had my best friend also working with us in the influencer marketing agency. And after I stepped down as the co-founder, even he had some commitments which he had to adhere to. So when we were speaking, we realized that we had similar interests, and we had our own ways of working, which we thought would, help us with more results. So that's when we clubbed and we formed Confluence Media. So he comes from a finance background, I come from a marketing background. So we bring the intersection of numbers, storytelling, branding, and marketing, and we operate in three verticals today. We started this in September. So yeah.
Basically, how did you start? So you knew that you were jumped from corporate to startup because startup matters a lot. Okay, so
Correct.
basically, how did you get your first client?
Okay, so when I was freelancing, the first client I got was a warm lead. So this person was actually from a pharmaceutical company.
Hmm.
He read some of my posts that I wrote about, I think, my experience at my first ever job. That was at HCL. So
Hmm.
he liked the post and he reached out to me. He was like, "Hey, I read your post and I really like it. Do you think you can write for me?" At that time, I was very scared, but I picked it up because I thought it would help me pivot, which it did, obviously. So my
Hmm.
first client was an inbound from LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And after that, I learned about outbound, making your portfolio and just uh, like coming up with lead magnets and all of that. So that's how I grew. And I would also reach out to people, people would reach out to me. And that's how freelancing happened. So yeah, my first client was inbound, but I do have my share of outbound clients as well. For Confluence, uh, it was through outbound. So because we had worked previously in an influencer marketing agency, we had some proof of work to show to them. So we would pitch out to X number of people every day via mail, calls, and LinkedIn DMs. So we would
Okay.
mostly reach out to brand strategists, chairman, and influencer marketing executives, and head of brand marketing and PR people and all of that. So that's when one person liked the proof of work that we did, and they came on a call with us. We explained the whole strategy, and then that's how we closed the deal. We
Okay.
had a lot of rejections too, but it was fun. We learned a lot.
So you told us that we used to do X amount of outreach every day.
Yeah.
So basically, how much outreach you used to do, and you were doing it on a weekend basis or not?
No, we used to do it every day.
Okay.
So we
And
would reach out to at least 10 to 15 brands every day.
okay, that's amazing. So what was your basically people were saying that we need to have a great proposal. Proposal is
Correct.
needed. Also, when I got my first line, so we made the proposal, contract, invoice. These matters a lot.
Correct. Correct.
So because see, in freelancing, it there's a lot of scam. But God,
Of
that's
course.
what I
You need
can
to
say.
take
And
50% of the advance. That's what we do. So whenever we sign a client, we take 50% of the advance before we begin with the work.
okay, and how to ask a client for referral? If not,
Oh, referral. Okay. Uh, in case if they don't sign with you, that's when.
sign in or not sign out also.
Oh, okay. So I feel like if they believe in your vision and they form that rapport with you, and if I feel like they like the results you're getting them, they'll automatically refer. So it's not something that you can ask, but obviously, you can send them your deck, you can send them your portfolio, and you can just be like, hey, we love working with you, and if you know anyone in this space that would like our services, just make sure you drop them a word. So very politely, just ask them to share with their contacts and stuff.
Okay, coming to you that there were 2 days. So hashtag does the hashtag matters a lot?
On LinkedIn, see, using anywhere between 3 to 5 hashtags is good. A lot of times you'll see people flooding their posts with hashtags.
Hmm.
Algorithm actually doesn't favor that. And it's a myth that hashtags help in reach. They only help in segmentation, right? So, for example, for me to make it easier, let's just say you're scrolling on Instagram, and if you want to figure out one type of reel, so if I want to watch reels in beauty and lifestyle, the first thing that I'll do is I'll go to the search box, type hashtag beauty and lifestyle. So that'll help me filter the videos. So even on LinkedIn, it helps you like declutter the topics and segment topics based on the categories. So it'll help you categorize and segment, but it's a myth that it helps in reach. Maybe if they're trending hashtags, they'll help you, but it's rare that hashtags help you in reach. That's
So,
okay, sure.
so what was the strategy? It was like bootstrapping, or you received the funding?
No, we were bootstrapped. So I think so. One good thing about a business is that we didn't need a lot of investment. It was because, by the time I started the business, it was in September, right? In the mid of September. So I had around 45,000 followers. My co-founder, he had around 12 to 14,000 followers. So I feel like we had already worked very hard from the scratch to sort of build that reputation and also for people to believe in our vision. So that really helped. We had backing because we worked for years together. Two, we did use some funds. So there were very minimal funds, like, to automate certain processes and systems, maybe to hire one or two interns to help us with things. It was the initial cost that we put in, which again we made back when we signed different deals with people.
So basically, whoever joins you, so basically, if there's any hiring opening, so how they can join your company? Basically, there's certain rules, certain interview questions you might ask.
So we're a small team, but I think we are looking for a person to help us with outreach, an intern preferably. One, if you understand LinkedIn, if you know how it works, if you're a social media buff, like you love spending time on social media, you're a marketing enthusiast.
Hmm.
Three, just be real, be authentic, be you. So, I think more than skills, what we check is that if they're open to, learning and adapting, because that's also important. Don't bluff, just be yourself. It's okay if you don't know certain things. Be committed to the hours that you say you would work in. So be committed, be passionate, because I think that's what sets people apart, and just be obsessed with what you do.
So, what is your take on AI? Because there's a lot of trend at AI,
Correct.
AI agent. What AI and AI agents also it's going a lot.
AI is great. I feel like as a writer, if you are not using AI, then it is a disadvantage. Obviously, if you're very talented enough, then cool. But AI really helps you save time, right? Like you have great tools. You have Claude, you have ChatGPT Pro, you have Perplexity. So
Grok,
using these, yeah, exactly.
Grok. There is one AI tool, Yap.com.
Okay.
You will get different models. There's ChatGPT model, there's Perplexity model, there is a
Wow.
Claude model. Yeah, they have for the
Awesome.
picture also and for the basically content also.
That's amazing. So
Yeah,
let's just say if a human is taking 1 hour to write a post, if you automate and if you train the model, it'll take 1/5 of the time. Like
yeah.
you can, so it'll help you save time, but again, you have to train your models well.
Hmm.
Obviously, because it'll depend on what you feed into them, and you need to be good at the prompts that you're giving.
Hmm.
Plus, don't rely on AI. Always make sure your content is authentic. Like, use it to refine, use it for suggestions, use it for improvising and improvements, but
Right.
don't rely completely on AI because you lose out on authenticity. And even LinkedIn or any other social media would probably stop favoring your profile if it's too spammy or too AI relevant.
Basically, you have experience. So what is the way of dealing with Indian clients and a way of dealing with foreign clients?
Okay, I feel like, okay, this might be a little controversial, but I feel like foreign clients are easier to work with because A, they understand what you bring to the table and they don't take things for granted. B, even if you tell them you're charging in dollars, they just want to know how would you justify to the price according to deliverables and the way you work with.
Okay.
So, yeah, so one thing that I've observed is when you're working with foreign clients, right, be very, very particular about timelines and deadlines. So, if you tell them that you're going to deliver it to them today, be that and be very proactive, be very clear, be crystal clear on how you're going to help them grow. So, even if you can't get them the results, but you want to work with them, just be very upfront about it. Indian clients, I think it's a little easier because obviously, you'll have an you'll have unspoken rapport with them. They'll also sort of understand you, but Indians are a little hard to work with because A, they delay payments. B, there's a lot of back and forth with them, and C, uh, there's no guidelines or SOPs that they operate with. So with foreign clients, it's very easy. So if you tell them that you need inputs or you need any kind of help, they'll just do it. within the agreed time, but Indian clients, there'll be a lot of back and forth that you have to deal with.
So basically, Indian clients needs what we do is basically many people say that I had a podcast with earlier people, so they say that work with 5 to 6 Indian people for the proof, then go to foreign people.
Definitely, definitely.
There's a lot.
So, yeah, so I think it's always better to start with your core people, right? Obviously, because
Yeah.
you'll also have that comfort segment. It won't be easier for you to comply with what other nationality person is telling. It'll be more easier for you to sort of adapt and work with your own nationality person. But even apart from the nationality, I feel like you need to understand how the market works. Like Indian and foreign markets are very different. Only if you know how one market works, you can learn from there and replicate it when you're taking it internationally. And you'll also build on proof of work. So it's always great to get started with a few Indian clients.
So I think so foreign people is gonna hire you easily when you show them
Correct.
the of the work.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So Vaishnavi, I just wanted to say that how did you make the portfolio?
Okay, so I actually so there are two types, right? So one is this site called Fueler that I really like. So for marketers, and I think if you're in branding or strategy, it's
Hmm.
great.
Hmm.
So Fueler is basically it's like a dashboard where you can upload different proofs of work. So it's like your digital portfolio. So I would obviously recommend people that.
Hmm.
Two, you can make a deck kind of a portfolio on Canva. So if you go to Canva and if you just look up for a portfolio template, you'll have it. So
Hmm.
what you can do is one, it's your introduction.
Hmm.
Two, it compiles your past work to present work. And three, about your future aspirations. So it can be anywhere between 5 to 7 slides. And
Hmm.
it can have the KPIs that you work with it. And yeah, it needs to have a lot of stats and quantified points. And you can also have some dissections of testimonials. If you feel like you cannot take the names of your clients, you can keep it confidential, but also have 1 2 testimonials to attest for the work that you do in your deck.
Okay. Coming to it, because there's a lot of people say that how we can show the proof of the work if we have not worked with any clients. I think so. Forage is the best thing because they have lot of
Correct.
projects to do it.
Correct.
Marketing project. They have the strategy marketing project. They have operation
Yeah.
because when I was learning about data analytics, I used to make projects with through them also, and in tech for tech people also they have, and for the basically for the strategy people, strategy marketing they have. Omni channel marketing
Correct.
is
Yeah, yeah,
yeah
Forage is a great platform because you'll
yeah.
also get hands-on exposure with the subjects and you'll also be able to
Mm,
work on projects. So I think that's a great way to get started. But I think additional steps are one, people do a lot of sample building, I would say, like they build in public. So, for
mm,
example, if I'm a marketer, if I
mm,
want to get hired by Dipender Goyal at Zomato,
mm,
so I'll maybe make a sample deck for Zomato, or maybe I'll write some notifications. So, I'll do
mm,
some extra work for that
mm,
brand. So, even if you want to get into freelancing and if you don't have clients, so pick any three people you like in the industry, optimize the profile, audit the profile, right?
mm.
How you like it, and just give tips and tricks in your own technique. It's okay if no one sees, it will still count as proof of work. So that is one. Second is to collaborate with people in your same niche. So if there are people who have clients, maybe you can ask them if they need help, you can collaborate with them or just do an internship.
Mm.
Uh, Three is you can post about it on LinkedIn and Instagram so people know that you're building publicly and there'll be people to track your journey. And it's great for you as well. When you look back, you'll know you improved a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah. So basically now, I just want to say that what are the books you love to read so that can give the people that whatever you have achieved a lot, but you have read some
That's so
books,
sweet.
newsletters and all.
Yeah, so newsletters, there's a bunch of them. I'm sorry, I don't remember the names. I'll leave in the
I'll,
comment. Yes.
yeah, leave in the comments. Just give me the link. I will be uploading it on the YouTube description and all.
Sure. For books, I think I mostly into, self-help and growth genre. So I love Unfinished by Priyanka Chopra. It's great. Then Atomic Habits is nice. Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. It's another great book. So Yeah, top of the mind, these three.
Okay, and coming to the last question. So there are a lot of people who are facing a lot of failures. They're doing consistently, but they're not seeing any result. What is your take on this? Because they're too fast. They want to achieve everything at very fast mode.
Takes time. So I'll just give you an example. So even before I converted a couple of interviews, right, I had 200 plus rejections because I come from a distance learning background. Every day would be a challenge. I felt suicidal. It was not easy. But okay, so I read this amazing, no, actually, I watched this reel and it changed my perspective. So think you're just 100 no's away from your first yes. So how would that be? So every time you hear a no, just be like, no, 99 no's to go, 97 no's to go. So I think
Hmm.
that's a great perspective. But yeah, everything takes time. Like they say, good things take time, right?
Hmm.
You need to experience failure. You need to experience vulnerability and humility, and that's how you'll grow as a person.
Hmm.
Uh Never stop believing. Just keep showing up because that's when magic happens. See, even to give you an example, there's Mr. Beast, there's so many great people. There's, Triggered and San, and we know all of these amazing YouTubers. Nishcha Malhan,
I don't remember his name. Trigger
Carrie
Insan.
Minati.
Oh, sorry, sorry. Yeah, Carry Minati.
There's so many people, yeah. So even if you see their channel, no, you'll because I do this a lot. So whenever I feel rejected or if I feel like nothing is working out, I go to these people's channels and I see that they are uploading since 10 years.
Hmm.
So Mr. Beast had like I think 400 videos before his 401st video got viral. So
500, I think so. 500, 400.
500, yeah, 500. So that's a lot of videos, right? So people give up very easily. But what differentiates a person is your momentum and consistency and your talent. So just keep going. Things will change, just keep going. It's
Yeah,
normal.
yeah.
Failure is normal.
So, Vaishnavi, I had a great time in hosting a podcast and I got a lot of
Awesome.
and audience would have gotten a lot of knowledge about the things and all how the work is going on and how the content marketing works because now every organization needs to function on the content
Correct.
because everyone is making a personal branding out of itself. Coming to LinkedIn, everyone is making LinkedIn, then come to Instagram, then YouTube. I think so many business owners are uploading a content on daily basis. They're uploading their
Correct.
channels and all because now everyone knows that personal branding is gonna work.
Very true. It will.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing.
Awesome. I had a great time talking to you as well.
Yeah. And I was getting a very good vibe, so that's matter a lot.
Oh, yeah, you're amazing too. Thank you for making me feel so warm. It was
Yeah, yeah,
lovely.
yeah. So thank you for being as a guest.